Hello and welcome to the first episode of Tech with Ohm. I'm your host, Omer Gerd. Today we're going to be looking at Massacre Girl Known Killer. She is a 4/4 human assassin with menace. Creatures you control have Wither, meaning they deal damage in the form of -1 counters. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness is less than 1, you get to draw a card. Now, I've played this deck quite a bit, and in my experience, I've noticed that every time I use it, I immediately become public enemy number 1. So if that's something you're into, then this is the deck for you. So let's break this thing down, jump right into it. Starting us off, we have a few planeswalkers. We have Liliana of the Dark Realms, 2 and 2 black, +1, search your library for a swamp card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle for -3. Target creature gets +X/+X or -X until end of turn, where X is the number of swamps you control. Or for -6, you get an emblem with swamps you control have tap to add 4 black mana. Next up, we have Liliana Dreadhorde General. Whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card. +1, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. -4, each player sacrifices 2 creatures. And -9, each opponent chooses a permanent in control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. And our final planeswalker is Vraska's Betrayal Sting. For 0, you draw a card, you lose 1 life, and you proliferate. For -2, target creature becomes a treasure artifact. For -9, if a target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. Moving into creatures, we have 27 in this deck. We have Ascendant Evankar. It is a 3/3 flying. Other black creatures get +1/+1. Non-black creatures get -1/-1. We have a Blood Artist, a 0/1. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Then we also have a Bloodletter of Aclazotz. He is a 2/4 flying. If an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice as much life instead. Next up, we have a Braids Arisen Nightmare. She's a 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. Then we have a Cryptgas, a 2/2 with Extort. Whenever you cast a spell, you may play a white or black. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add an additional swamp to your mana pool. Then we have a Dread Presence, a 3/3. Whenever a swamp enters the battlefield under your control, you choose one. You draw a card and you lose 1 life, or Dread Presence deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life. Quick side note with this, something to look at is Dread Presence deals 2 damage. With the commander on the field, creatures you control deal damage in the form of -1 counters. But when you play a swamp, it's an immediate put 2 -1 counters on any creature. Drivnod Carnage Dominius, an 8/3. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. For 2 Phyrexian black, exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard, put an indestructible counter on Drivnod. We have a Gray Merchant of Asphodel. It's a 2/4. When Gray Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the amount of life lost this way. We have a Crick, Son of Yawgmoth, a 2/2 lifelink. For each black and a cost, you may pay 2 life rather than pay that mana cost. Whenever you cast a black spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Crick. We have a Magus of the Coffers, a 4/4. For 2, you can tap it, add a swamp to your mana pool for each swamp you control. We have a Maha, its Feathers Knight, a 6/5 with flying and trample, ward, discard a card. Creatures opponents control have base toughness 1. And then we have Massacre Girl herself, a 4/4 with menace. When Massacre Girl enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Up next, we have a Massacre Worm, a 6/5. When Massacre Worm enters the battlefield, creatures opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. There's a Midnight Banshee, a 5/5 with Wither. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1 counter on each non-black creature. Morbid Opportunist, a 1/3. Whenever one or more other creatures die, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Nurkana Revenant, a 4/4. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you add an additional swamp to your mana pool. For 1 black, Nurkana Revenant gets +1/+1 until end of turn, which you can do for as many swamps as you control. Obnixilis Unshackled, a 4/4 with Flying Trample. Whenever an opponent searches his or her library, that player sacrifices a creature and loses 10 life. Whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Obnixilis Unshackled. We have a Persistent Constrictor, a 5/3. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they lose 1 life, and you put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature they control with Persist. When this creature dies, if it had no -1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1 counter on it. Phyrexian Obliterator is a 5/5 with Trample. Whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. There's a Sangromancer, a 3/3 with Flying. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may gain 3 life. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you may gain 3 life. There's a lot of life gain in this deck off of this creature. We are also putting in a Shieldred the Apocalypse, a 4/5 with Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. And of course, we also put in Shieldred the Whispering One, a 6/6 with Swamp Walk. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. We have a Skinrender, a 3/3. When Skinrender enters the battlefield, put 3 -1 counters on target creature. And a Slaughter Specialist, a 3/3. When Slaughter Specialist enters the battlefield, each opponent creates a 1/1 white human creature token. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Slaughter Specialist. Spitting Dilophosaurus, a 3/2. When Spitting Dilophosaurus enters the battlefield or attacks, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature. Creatures opponents control with -1 counters on them cannot block. We also have a Sir Conrad the Grim, a 5/4. When another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. For 1 and a black, each player mills a card, and you can do this for as much mana as you have available. Vein Ripper, a 6/5 with Flying Ward, sacrifice a creature. Whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Moving into enchantments, we have 10 of them. Starting us off, we have an Animate Dead for 1 and a black. Enchant creature in a graveyard. When Animate Dead enters the battlefield, if it's on the battlefield, it loses an enchant creature card in a graveyard and gains enchant creature put onto the battlefield with Animate Dead. Return enchanted creature card to the battlefield under your control and attach it to Animate Dead. When Animate Dead leaves the battlefield, that creature's controller sacrifices it. Enchanted creature gets -1, -0. We have a Blowfly Infestation for 2 and a black. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, if it had a -1 counter on it, put a -1 counter on target creature. Curse of Death's Hold is 3 and 2 black. Enchant player, creatures enchanted player control get -1, -1. We have an Exquisite Blood, 4 and a black. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. We have a Grave Pact for 1 and 3 black. Whenever a creature you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. Necromancy for 2 and a black. You may cast Necromancy as though it had flash. If you cast it anytime a sorcery couldn't have been cast, the controller of the permanent it becomes sacrifices it at the beginning of the next cleanup step. When Necromancy enters the battlefield, if it's on the battlefield, it becomes an aura with enchant creature put into the battlefield with Necromancy. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control and attach Necromancy to it. When Necromancy leaves the battlefield, that creature's controller sacrifices it. We also have a Nest of Scarabs for 2 and a black. Whenever you put 1 or more -1, -1 counters on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. And to finish up our enchantments, we have an Oubliette for 1 and 2 black. When Oubliette enters the battlefield, target creature phases out until Oubliette leaves the battlefield. Tap that creature as it phases in this way. We have a Tainted Remedy for 2 and a black. If an opponent will gain life, that player loses that much life instead. And finally, we have the Meat Hook Massacre for X and 2 black. When Meathook Massacre enters the battlefield, each creature gets -X until end of turn. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain 1 life. We have 10 sorceries in this deck. Starting us up, we have a Black Sun Zenith for X and 2 black. Put X -1/-1 counters on each creature. Shuffle Black Sun Zenith into its owner's library. We have a Demonic Tutor for 1 and a black. You may search your library for 1 card, take it into your hand, reshuffle your library afterwards. We have an Exsanguinate for X and 2 black. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the amount of life lost this way. We also have a Grim Tutor for 1 and 2 black. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle. You lose 3 life. Incremental Blight for 3 and 2 black. Put 1 -1/-1 counter on target creature. 2 -1 counters on another creature, and 3 on a third. Mutilate for 2 and a black. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. Then we have a Reanimate for 1 black. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value. Rise of the Dark Realms is a 7 and 2 black. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Torment of Hailfire X and 2 black. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. Toxic Deluge for 2 and a black. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay X life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. We have 10 instants in this deck. We have Bloodline Culling for 1 and 2 black. Choose 1, target creature gets -5/-5 till end of turn. Creature tokens get -2/-2 until end of turn. We have a Dark Ritual for 1 black. Add 3 black to your mana pool. A Defile for 1 black. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. And we have a Dismember for 1 and 2 Phyrexian black. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. Imp's Mischief, 1 and a black. Change the target of target spell with a single target. You lose life equal to that spell's mana value. Join the Dead, 1 and 2 black. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. Descend 4. That creature gets -10/-10 until end of turn. Instead, if there are 4 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. Sudden Spoiling, 1 and 2 black. Split Second. As long as this spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities until end of turn. Creatures target player control lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 0-2. Tragic Slip, 1 black. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Morbid. That creature gets -13/-13 until end of turn instead if a creature died this turn. We have a Vampiric Tutor for 1 black. Search your library for a card, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. You lose 2 life. And a Whisper of the Dross, 1 black. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn and Proliferate. We have 6 artifacts in the deck. We have a Bantu's Monument for 3 generic. Black creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. We have a Genesis Chamber for 2 generic. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, if Genesis Chamber is untapped, that creature's controller creates a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. We have a Jet Medallion for 2 generic. Black spells cost 1 less to cast. Mindcrank for 2 generic. Whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from the top of his or her library into his or her grave. Phyrexian Altar for 3 generic. Sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. And of course, we have a Soul Ring for 1 generic. Tap to add 2 colorless. Moving on to lands, we have 33 of them in this deck. We have a Bojuka Bog. Bojuka Bog enters the battlefield tapped. When Bojuka Bog enters the battlefield, exile target player's library, tap it to add a black. Cabal Coffers, pay 2, tap it to add black for each swamp you control. Forbidden Orchard, tap it, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Whenever you tap Forbidden Orchard for mana, target opponent creates a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. Karn's Bastion, tap it to add a colorless. Pay 4, tap it, Proliferate. Nesting Grounds, tap it to add a colorless. Pay 1, tap it, move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. We have a Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. tap it to add 1 generic to your mana pool. Pay 2, tap it, choose a color, add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. And a Phyrexian Tower, tap it to add a colorless. Tap it, sacrifice a creature, add 2 black. Reliquary Tower, you have no maximum hand size, tap it to add a colorless. We have 24 swamps, and we have an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other types. Cost reduction and ramp. We have the Liliana of the Dark Realms. We primarily want her for her final ability to get the emblem where all of our swamps are going to tap to add 4 mana to our mana pool. We have the Cryptghast for doubling our swamps, and Crick, Son of Yawgmoth. All of our black pips and all of our costs we can now pay with life instead of using our mana. Magus of the Coffers, you pay 2, you tap it. You're going to add black to your mana pool for each swamp you control. Nirkana Revenant is going to double all of our swamps. Dark Ritual, you pay 1 black, you get 3. Bantu's Monument, we're going to reduce the cost of all of our creatures by 1 generic. Jet Medallion, reducing the cost of all of our black spells by 1 generic. Phyrexian Altar, we sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. Notably, this is really good with Genesis Chamber and the Nest of Scarabs. We just sacrifice our tokens. Soul Ring, it's going to give us 2 colorless. Cabal Coffers, we're going to tap it. We're going to add a whole bunch of black mana in off of our swamps. Nykthos, it's going to give us a ton of black mana off of our enchantments, our creatures. Once we have an established board state. Phyrexian Tower, again, we're going to target our tokens to sacrifice them to just get a little extra mana out of that as well. We're going to get a ton of card advantage in this deck, primarily off of our commander. We're going to be killing stuff left and right, as well as doubling it up with Morbid Opportunist for an additional card each turn. Liliana, Dreadhorde General, whenever one of our creatures dies, we're going to draw a card. Just want to mention with Drivnod, all of these triggers are going to trigger an additional time. Braids Arisen Nightmare, if we're killing everything and we sacrifice a token to Braids Arisen Nightmare, chances are your opponents aren't going to have creatures to sacrifice alongside of it, so they're going to pay the 2 life, give you a card draw. Vraska Betrayal Sting, same exact thing. You're going to lose a life, draw a card, and proliferate off of that. Got some good target removal in here as well. Vraska Betrayal Sting, her -2 ability, we're just going to turn any terrifying creature on the field into a treasure token, making it useless. Bloodline Culling, we can remove target creature with power 5 or less. Defile, target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn for each swamp you control, and Dismember for 1 and 2 Phyrexian Black, target creature gets -5/-5 till end of turn. We have Join the Dead, target creature gets -5/-5 till end of turn. Descend, it's going to get -10/-10 if there are 4 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. Tragic Slip, it's going to get -1/-1 till end of turn, or -13/-13 if a creature died this turn. Chances are a creature died this turn. Whisper of the Dross, target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn. Really good for killing off the tokens that are going to be generated off of either Forbidden Orchard or off of Genesis Chamber. Oubliette, also really strong. It's going to, potentially remove a commander from the game completely. I've seen it happen numerous times. Somebody doesn't run enchantment removal, cast it on a commander, the commander's gone for the whole game. You don't have to worry about it anymore. This next section I like to consider as the distractions, stuff that you get out to keep people from targeting the important stuff. They are not crucial to your game plan to win. So that will be the Liliana Dreadhorde General. People are going to see that. It's immediate kill on sight. Bloodletter of Aklazats. People don't want their life damage being doubled. Obnixilus Unshackled, it's stopping people from searching their library, so they're going to want that gone. Phyrexian Obliterator, it's more so a protection thing, but it is something that people are going to want to avoid swinging at you because they don't want to have to sacrifice permanents. Shielded the Whispering one, they're going to want that going as fast as possible because you're destroying their creatures on each of their upkeeps. And Shielded the Apocalypse, nobody wants to lose life when they're drawing cards, so they're going to want that going pretty fast as well. This whole deck has a ton of combos in it, a lot of synergy going on, but I just want to showcase a few of my favorite combos with this deck. Like this one here, we have Braids of Risen Nightmare and Grave Pact. So our end step, we're going to sacrifice a token. It's going to force Grave Pact to trigger, making everybody sacrifice a creature, and then they are stuck to force to either sacrifice another creature or lose 2 life and give you a card to draw. Another really interesting one to look at is Maha, its Feathers Knight. So creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1, pairs very well with Curse of Death's Hold. Enchant player, creatures enchanted player control get -1/-1, basically effectively completely locking that player out of having creatures. Same as it's said in Evidcar, if they are not running black creatures or you're the only player in the pod using black creatures, it'll effectively lock all of your opponents out of having creatures. Also, Maha with Blowfly Infestation. If you kill one creature with your Wither effect, you can effectively just completely wipe the entire board of all of your opponent's creatures. Another great one is Sudden Spoiling with Massacre Worm, Cat Massacre Worm. All creatures are going to get -2/-2 until end of turn. Even if they're really big, as long as they don't have counters on them, you immediately cast out the Sudden Spoiling, bringing their base power and toughness to 0/2 and just completely wiping out an opponent's creatures. This next one here, Sir Conrad the Grim with Mind Crank. I have seen this completely end games instantly. So whenever a creature dies or a creature is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature leaves your graveyard, he deals 1 damage to each opponent. With Mind Crank, whenever an opponent loses life, they put that many cards from his or her library into the graveyard. With the amount of mana we can generate in this deck, you should easily be able to activate Sir Conrad's ability to easily make somebody mill up to 15-20 cards even. And then chances are there's going to be a ton of creatures in there, which is just going to start a cycle of them pinging back and forth and completely ending the game. Another really great one is the Black Sun Zenith with Nest of Scarabs. So Nest of Scarabs, whenever you put 1 or more -1 counters on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. Black Sun Zenith, you put X -1/-1 counters on each creature, shuffle it back into your library. So the idea with this is you want to cast Black Sun Zenith for as much as you possibly can, which should effectively kill everything. But now, because if you cast Black Sun Zenith where X equals 15, 16, 17, the Nest of Scarabs is going to see you put 15 plus -1 counters on one creature, creating that many 1/1 black insects. I've had this go off where I've ended up creating 4, 5, 6, 700 1/1 insects in an instant. Another way to just make this even better is hold off on 3 mana available. Make this combo, make a whole bunch of 1/1 insects, and then cast Meathook Massacre for 1. If you have 6, 7, 800 1/1 insects, Meathook Massacre is going to kill them all. Because they're your creatures, it's going to ping every opponent for that much damage and just completely end the game. And then of course we have to throw in an infinite combo. We are going to do this with Nest of Scarabs, Blowfly Infestation, and either the Blood Artist or the Vein Ripper. So what's going to happen is once you have like 2 or 3 1/1 insects out, you will kill something with a -1 counter. When it dies, you will put one onto one of your black insects. Because a creature with a -1 counter on it died, it will trigger Blowfly Infestation. You will put another one on a creature. Because you put one on a creature, it'll trigger Nest of Scarabs, giving you an additional 1/1 black insect. So you can infinitely just keep putting on -1 counters onto your insects as you generate them. They'll just keep dying infinitely, and you can just ping everybody to death with either Vein Ripper or Blood Artist. And that's going to bring us to the end of this one here. Let me know down in the comments what you thought. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. Decklist will be available below, and that's going to do it for me. I'll see you in the next one.